With special counsel Robert Mueller expected to submit his findings to the Attorney General any day now, both President Donald Trump supporters and his critics are hoping it will bring them vindication.
Because we're gonna go in there, we're gonna impeach the motherfucker.
Probably no group will be more disappointed than supporters of the pro-Trump internet conspiracy theory QAnon. Support for QAnon seems to be going strong, so we went to CPAC in search of true believers. Have you heard of QAnon?
Of course. Of course.
No. Yes, I have heard of QAnon. It's one of these like online things.
Are you QAnon and just like trolling everybody? You're like, it's me.
No, I'm not QAnon. Let's do a quick recap. QAnon claims that actually, special counsel Robert Mueller and President Donald Trump are secretly working together to thwart a coup by the so-called deep state, which happens to be full of child-molesting elites. By the summer of 2018, believers in the fantastical theory started showing up in droves at Trump campaign rallies, bearing Q-inspired t-shirts, hats, signs, and buttons. And then a book promoting QAnon reached number 2 on Amazon's bestseller list. But because big online platforms have purged discussion of QAnon, it's difficult to gauge its popularity out in the real world.
They lost a lot of critical mass when their apps got taken down from the App Store, when their Reddit page got taken down.
Jack Posobiec, a pro-Trump internet pundit and host for One America News, has closely watched Q's explosive growth from its inception. And you knew Q was coming even before it ever happened. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, I knew Q before Q was Q, right? A Twitter user named Dreamcatcher reached out to this reporter and told me about an op that he was planning with notorious pro-Trump troll Microchip that would plant bits of information on 4chan and act like it was coming from a high-level source inside the administration or the intelligence community. That later became the QAnon operation.
Some argue that QAnon is getting too much play in the media.
Media people are on Twitter, Q people are on Twitter. If it's on Twitter, it's hot, it's relevant, it's hot. And I don't even know how to describe what it is now.
Mike Cernovich is a far-right social media agitator, active in the same online fever swamps where Q is popular. Both Cernovich and Posobiec have taken fire for promoting the debunked Pizzagate conspiracy theory that alleges that associates of Hillary Clinton kept child sex slaves in a Washington, D.C. pizzeria.
I don't know that it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's more of a myth. Rather than, it's just the story that's being told, and people believe that story the same reason people believe Scientology, right? Is Scientology a conspiracy? I would say Q at this point is almost like a religion.
I am 100% behind Q. He's working for the president, he's working for our country.
I know we've discussed it a lot of times and we're like, well, I'm not really sure I believe that part of it, but yet I don't think he's lying to us, whoever he is.
So where do you expect Q is going from here? Is it going to fizzle out? Is it only going to grow? Is there any way to say?
So I really don't think that it's growing in terms of bringing in new members, but given the nature of what it is and the way that they really made a belief structure about this, that I think you're going to see a hardening of the people that are true believers. Quite frankly, from the perspective of someone who used to do investigations at the federal level, I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't federal investigators already assigned, or at least analysts already assigned, to be monitoring specifically what Q believers were saying on a daily basis, because you do now have the makings of small, but you do have the makings of a possible extremist network.
QAnon may not have won over the CPAC crowd, but then again, you could have said the same thing about Donald Trump in 2016. And for true believers, there's always next year.
I'm Justin Anon. Have a good day.